Welcome to History What If, where we question the events that already happened. What really could have happened? Could we have changed the outcome? Before we begin, everything you're about to hear is based on historical research, facts, and records. The what if scenarios are my own opinion and interpretation of events, designed to make you think, question, and explore history differently. This is not the official historical record. This is history, through a different lens. October 31st, 2008, Halloween. While most people were handing out candy and dressing their children as superheroes, someone somewhere using the name Satoshi Nakamoto quietly uploaded a 9-page document to the internet. The document was called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It was read by approximately 12 people, 11 of whom didn't fully understand it. The 12th person, a programmer named Hal Finney, understood it completely. And on January 3rd, 2009, when Satoshi Nakamoto mined the very first Bitcoin into existence, Hal Finney was the first person to receive it, 10 Bitcoin, sent directly from Satoshi, the first Bitcoin transaction in history. Hal Finney held onto those coins. He died in 2014. Those 10 Bitcoin are now worth over $1 million. Nobody knew what was coming. Nobody knew that this small, confusing document uploaded on Halloween by a person who may or may not exist would eventually create an asset class worth trillions of dollars, inspire over 20,000 copycat cryptocurrencies, and make 2 pizzas the most expensive meal in the history of human civilization. To understand Bitcoin, you first need to understand why it was invented. 2008, the global financial system had just imploded. Banks had gambled with people's money, lost catastrophically. And then, in one of the most remarkable moments in modern history, governments around the world gave them more money to cover it. The public was, and I want to use precise financial terminology here, absolutely furious. In the middle of this fury, Satoshi Nakamoto published Bitcoin. The timing was not a coincidence. Embedded in the very first Bitcoin block ever mined, the Genesis block, was a message. A newspaper headline coded directly into the data, the Times March 1st, 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. Satoshi was making a point, very quietly, in computer code, to approximately 12 people. The idea was simple. What if money existed that no government could print, no bank could control, and no single person could own? What if transactions could happen between 2 people directly, without a bank, without a middleman, without anyone being able to stop it? That was Bitcoin. That was the whole idea. In the beginning, Bitcoin was worth nothing, literally nothing. The first price ever recorded for Bitcoin was in 2009, less than 1/10 of a cent per coin. You could buy 1,309 Bitcoin for $1. Let me say that again, 1,309 Bitcoin for $1. Most people ignored it completely. Those who did pay attention mostly used it to buy things on the dark web that we won't be going into today. But then, on May 22nd, 2010, a programmer from Florida named Laszlo Hanyecz decided to do something genuinely historic. He posted on a Bitcoin forum. His message? I'll pay 10,000 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas. Not a metaphor, not a joke. 2 actual pizzas, delivered to his house for 10,000 Bitcoin. A 19-year-old named Jeremy Sturdivant, username Jerkos, accepted. He ordered 2 large Papa John's pizzas, delivered them to Laszlo's house, and collected 10,000 Bitcoin in exchange. 10,000 Bitcoin, worth $41 at the time, worth, as of today, over $1 billion. May 22nd is now celebrated every year as Bitcoin Pizza Day. Laszlo, when asked if he has any regrets, said, "The transaction made Bitcoin real for some people. He is either the most philosophical man alive or very good at pretending to be fine." From those humble pizza-adjacent beginnings, Bitcoin's price went on a journey. In 2010, fractions of a cent. In 2011, it hit $1. People called it a bubble. They were wrong. In 2013, it crossed $1,000 for the first time. People called it a bubble. They were wrong. In 2017, it reached $20,000. People called it a bubble. They were, briefly, right, and then very wrong again. In November 2021, Bitcoin hit an all-time high of $68,789. The total cryptocurrency market, every coin, every token, every digital asset that exists because Bitcoin proved the concept was possible, reached a combined value of over $3 trillion. $3 trillion for currency invented 16 years earlier by someone who may or may not exist. And then in December 2024, Bitcoin broke $100,000 per coin. $100,000 for one Bitcoin. Remember, in 2009, you could buy 1,309 of them for $1. Before we get to the what if, we need to talk about some of the most remarkable things that happened because Bitcoin existed, because they are genuinely extraordinary, and also in some cases genuinely painful to hear. James Howells, IT worker, Newport, Wales, 2013. He was doing a routine office clearout. He had two identical hard drives, one blank, one containing the private key to a Bitcoin wallet holding 8,000 Bitcoin. He accidentally threw the wrong one away. That hard drive ended up in the Docksway landfill in Newport, Wales, buried under hundreds of thousands of tons of compacted rubbish. By the time Bitcoin hit $100,000, those 8,000 coins were worth approximately $800 million in a landfill in Wales. And then there is Satoshi Nakamoto, the person, or people, who invented Bitcoin, the most important financial innovator of the 21st century, who has never been identified, not once, in over 15 years. Satoshi is estimated to own approximately 1 million Bitcoin, coins mined in the very early days. At $100,000 per coin, Satoshi Nakamoto is sitting on approximately $100 billion. And nobody knows who they are. Nobody has ever spent those coins. They have just been sitting there for 15 years. The largest pile of dormant wealth in the history of finance, owned by a ghost. Multiple people have claimed to be Satoshi over the years. Journalists have investigated candidates. The FBI, the CIA, and several national intelligence agencies have all reportedly tried to identify them. None of them have succeeded. Bitcoin was invented by someone. That someone is still out there, sitting on $100 billion, saying absolutely nothing. Now, before the what if, let's be clear about what Bitcoin actually created, because it wasn't just a price chart going up. Bitcoin invented blockchain technology. A blockchain is essentially a public ledger, a record of every transaction ever made that is stored across thousands of computers simultaneously and cannot be altered by any single party. You cannot hack it, forge it, or rewrite it. It just exists, shared, permanent, transparent. Blockchain technology is now used in banking, healthcare data management, supply chain tracking, and the frontier of our times, digital ownership of assets. Over 20,000 other cryptocurrencies exist today because Bitcoin proved the concept was viable. Ethereum, Dogecoin, yes, really, Solana, XRP, and thousands of others. All of them children of that 9-page document uploaded on Halloween 2008. So, the big question, what if Bitcoin never existed? Let's start with the obvious. If Bitcoin never existed, none of the 20,000 other cryptocurrencies exist either. No Ethereum, no Dogecoin, no NFTs. The entire crypto market, $3 trillion at its peak, simply doesn't happen. Billions of people who made money in crypto are just ordinary people, living ordinary lives, not knowing what they missed. The people who lost money in crypto, and there were many people who lost money in crypto, also don't lose that money, which is perhaps the most comforting part of this entire what if. Without Bitcoin, blockchain technology either doesn't exist or develops much later in a different form for different reasons. The technology itself was groundbreaking, but it needed the financial incentive of cryptocurrency to develop as fast as it did. Without that incentive, blockchain's development could have been delayed by a decade or more. Dark web markets like Silk Road, which ran entirely on Bitcoin's anonymous transactions, either don't exist or find a much harder path. Ransomware attacks, which demand Bitcoin as payment precisely because it's hard to trace, become significantly less profitable for criminals. Without an anonymous digital currency, the business model of holding data hostage for untraceable payment falls apart. Here is what the world probably looks like without Bitcoin. El Salvador, which in 2021 became the first country to make Bitcoin legal tender, never makes that decision. Their experiment with digital currency doesn't happen. The debate about whether a country can run on cryptocurrency simply doesn't occur. MicroStrategy, the company that put billions of corporate cash into Bitcoin, invests it somewhere more conventional. Their stock doesn't become a proxy for Bitcoin prices. Michael Saylor doesn't become one of the most talked about figures in global finance. He is instead just a software CEO, a perfectly respectable thing to be. The energy consumption debate doesn't happen either. Bitcoin mining currently uses roughly 0.6% to 2.3% of the United States' entire electricity consumption. Entire countries' worth of power, running computers, solving mathematical puzzles, to produce digital coins. Without Bitcoin, that electricity goes elsewhere. Powers homes, powers hospitals, doesn't power a million computers guessing numbers very fast. And the pizza. Laszlo Hanyec's 2 Papa John's pizzas, the ones that cost him 10,000 Bitcoin, those are just 2 normal pizzas, worth $41. Eaten, gone. Not the most expensive meal in human history, just dinner. Here is the uncomfortable truth about Bitcoin. It was, depending on your perspective, one of the greatest financial innovations in history and one of the most chaotic, speculative, and occasionally criminal ones at the same time. Both things are true simultaneously, which is very on brand for something invented by a person who doesn't officially exist. Could Bitcoin have never existed? Technically, yes. If Satoshi Nakamoto had decided not to publish that 9-page document on Halloween 2008, if they had sat on the idea or abandoned it or decided the world wasn't ready, Bitcoin simply doesn't happen. Would someone else have invented it? Possibly. The ideas weren't entirely new. The technology was coming. But without Satoshi's specific implementation, at that specific moment, during that specific financial crisis, it would have been different. Different timing, different design, different outcome. What we know for certain is this. A mystery person uploaded 9 pages to the internet, then disappeared, left behind $100 billion they've never touched, changed the global financial system, and somehow, still, nobody knows who they are. If this video made you think, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Do you think Bitcoin was a good thing for the world? Let's debate it. This is History, What If, and I'll see you in the next one.